mentor. If it weren't for Tony, I wouldn't be here today. Taught me everything I know.
I know Tony Nunes when he was young.
How far back was that?
1940, I think he was a young boy,
No.
Tony Nunes.
1946. So we got
46.
Santa Clara over here and Sunnyvale over here.
Right, he was a Santa Clara Flash. He was a defensive end and a runner.
He was a football player?
He was a football player. He was a 145-pound defensive end.
He still weighs 145.
No.
He reminded me of Howie Long that played for the Raiders, but he was a miniature Howie Long.
I remember Dozier, Escalera, and Poem, though.
There you go. He
They
knows
run right
all
over
that.
the top of me.
So what do we do
1950.
every month at Harry's house?
We come and have lunch and shoot the breeze and tell us each other how good we used to be.
And how good was Tony?
Tony was great. He could do it all. He was a free throw shooter too.
So what do you call Sunnyvale High?
Sunnyvale State University, the Pickers. We're the Pickers.
I think Tony, let's look under Nunes. There he is right there.
Him and Fred Lindsay and there's Nunes right there, young guy. All these names in this book, I knew all these guys. Ralph Kling, Fred Lindsay. Holy cow.
Charlie, from your heart, what was it like living in Sunnyvale back in the day?
Good old days. It was fun. We were too dumb to know anything, and then we never was in a hurry because there was no place to go anyway.
If you
We had a
could do
good
it all
time.
over again, would you do anything different?
Not much, probably. Didn't have enough brains. You know, we played City League together, Tony and I, for 20 years. Softball together. What else, Tony? Paulson, Eric Paulson was one of them, and his brother. And then he had some other pretty good players too, but I can't remember the name. Hell of a D coach, because they were undefeated, but he wasn't as good a varsity coach as he was a D coach, because sometimes he got beat as a varsity coach.
Tony's, my favorite story that Tony tells is when he pulled into a gas station and some guy said, "Hey, are you over at Sunnyvale High?" Tony, take it from there.
Ken Amick. I said, yeah. It was the first night of our varsity game, third year. So I'll tell you how to solve the Sunnyvale problem. As it's basketball, he said, what's that? Fire the varsity coach and hire the C coach.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Yeah. So one night we were going to play a basketball game. Tony had me drive to the asphalt courts in the Fair Oaks Park. And what was the name of the coach that was from the junior high coach?
Elmer Craig.
What was the name?
Elmer Craig.
Elmer Craig. And so Elmer had these kids out there playing in the fog, in the dark, and they were playing by the street lights. And then Tony said, "There's my kids coming up."
Yeah, he was working them hard.
Well, he wasn't working, he learned the system. That's why he had so many kids. But the bad news was, that end of town didn't have so many big guys.
Yeah.
I think the tallest guy you ever had was 6'6", that's Tony. What happened at Sunnyvale High School, well, of course, it was a political thing. They should never have closed Sunnyvale High School. That was a big mistake, political mistake, terrible. They should have closed Homestead. So they closed Sunnyvale High and they busted all those people. They screwed the whole thing up, all about politics. Because the Board of Trustees had no guts. And they knew better, so they had to bust all those people from
Charlie Olson
Lakewood.
never holds back, does he, Tony?
Charlie Olson is Sunnyvale.
He is.
Lakewood Village.
I'll tell you one thing. No one has done more from Sunnyvale than Charlie Olson. He's been a strong member. He's been a contributor. His orchard and now his great complex there.
Yep.
His family is traditional. I mean,
So one time they were playing at City College in San Francisco, and so I asked Tony if I could come in the locker room with him to learn something how the coach treats his locker room player, his halftime players. So they were behind about 10 or 15. I walked in and sat down in the corner to keep out of the way. Tony tore into him like a drill sergeant at Fort Ord. And I was so embarrassed I walked out. And another time I went to see him coach, he wouldn't even sit with the players. he sat in the back of the stands and let them by themselves because they wouldn't do what he said. So that's how he did it, but he did it. And the tribute to Tony, when they had the retirement party, the coach of San Francisco City College.
Dugan.
I can't remember the name.
Brad Dugan.
Yeah, said that he knew that when he played against Tony, he had to coach his best because Tony didn't have the best players, but they were the best coached. So if he wanted to beat Nunes, he had a coach. So that was a hell of a tribute coming from a coach like that, you know.
So when Tony ran that holiday basketball tournament, who had the record for eating the most sandwiches?
Well, I had it for years, and somebody beat me out.
Speaking of sandwiches.
The Sunnyvale tourney, I made a record of having the most free sandwiches in the coach's room until I held the record for 10 years.
Stand in there with
10 years until a rookie beat me, a young kid beat me. Nunes said I had the record at the Sunnyvale tourney for over 10 years, having the most free sandwiches.
Now, I'm going to jump in here, and 99% of the people in the Bay Area know this guy, but for those 1% that don't, this is Charlie Olson.
Thank you.
You are a legend. So what would you like to say to Tony since he's not here?
Tony was a hell of a coach, but he one of the highlights of his career, he coached the C's and the D's, and they were undefeated. So at the varsity level, he wasn't doing so good. So one of the games I was sitting there watching, the team was not doing so well, and one of the fans says, "Hey, Tony, you ought to quit and get the coach that coaches the lightweights."
Yeah, you told me that story.
Yeah.
At the gas station. Get rid of that varsity coach.
Yeah, right, that guy, get the kid to get a coach. But I had the record for years, and then somebody beat me out. But that was a hell of a tournament. It was a hell of a tournament. And one of the big things about Tony was he was to play in San Francisco against some high school team in San Francisco, and he got the Mezostanga to buy them all new uniforms. Okay? So he goes up there, all these brand new uniforms, and I can't remember, I think it was Lloyd Leith.
Yeah, Mission High.
Mission High School. So now Tony's at the game and he's warming up the kids, and Coach Leith comes in the room. He was also a bus driver, I guess. So he had a big cardboard box and he had a bunch of guys sitting there and he was throwing them a shirt. Is that right, Tony? And here Tony had them all in pants and looking like the LA Lakers. So there was a lot of fun. And
Charlie, how many years have you known Tony?
50, I guess.
Well, at least that.
Oh, I mean 50s. 55, I know.
When
Started.
did you graduate from Fremont?
52. He got out at 50.
And then he was at Santa Clara High. When did you graduate, Tony?
1950.
50, got it.
But I remember he was a stalwart defensive end and a miler. But he could play. He could beat you too. And he didn't like to lose. He would call you bad names and he would kick the ball. And we played a tournament in Stockton against the Manteca against the Stockton Steppers. They had the Gardere brothers and a guy named Wilson, 6'7" center. They were all pretty good. And we beat them 99-98. And they wanted to play us again, but we were too smart for that. So on the way home from the game, we were riding in the car, 6 or 7 of us stuffed in the car, and we decided that we were going to have a track meet amongst our team. Johnny Ursig, Chuck Reynolds, Ren Nunes, and me, and we were all predicting we're all going to win the 100. We all thought we were faster.
It was a 100-yard dash, right?
So when we got to the that was the name of that chicken restaurant from
No, where Macy's is in there.
yeah, Macy's, that's where we had the race.
Yeah.
But there was this restaurant right there.
Oh, yeah, Stickney's.
So we raced, me and Reynolds raced on the sidewalk. Remember that, Tony? In the middle of the night, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. We were racing, me and him, and I nipped Reynolds by an inch. And Reynolds says, "I didn't think you could beat me." And I said, "I didn't think you could be that close." That's not bad. And they timed us with the hourglass, not with a stopwatch. But it was a great time we had by all. We went to Gonzales, we won the tournament. And then one time Tony and Ursig were tied for the scoring lead. They had 44 points apiece in one game. And so Tony stole the ball and went up for a layup. Somebody blocked the ball. It was Ursig.
This was his teammate.
So teammate blocked the ball. Is that right, Tony?
Yep.
And he wanted to be the scoring champion. So we won the tournament twice, I think, at least twice. There's more stories. I don't have all that much time, but let's say that Tony was one of the great ones. And I think that too many people took people like Tony for granted, but they didn't realize what they had to go through to get what they got, because it didn't come easy.
You never know when.
No one even knew I was bilingual. When I went to school, I couldn't speak English. I was Portuguese.
I'm proud of what you did.
Very proud.
Santa Clara.
I got in all kinds of trouble when I was very young because I didn't know what they were saying and made up my own rules.
Well, that was a good thing. He's still around to tell the stories.
Hey, this is wonderful.
Okay, Kurt.
His memory is sensational.
Oh, Charlie?
When he went 99-98, I knew he was locked in.
The good old days. I went to see him at the end of college coaching, and I guess that was the end of the line. One day he retired, went to the retirement party. And I wish his principal Stanga was here because he had a lot of Tony Nunes stories.
Oh, Stanga was wonderful.
He was a great guy.
This is really a funny story. 'Cause I was making about $6,000 at the prison. My salary in Sunnyvale was $4,000.
It's all right. It's all right.
So I brought home my first check, $257. And my wife said, "That's not bad for 2 weeks." I said, "No, dear, that's for the month."
I remember Tony told me one time we were riding to see a basketball game in San Francisco, the pros. And I can only make $1,000 a month, I'll be rich.
That was my goal when I got out of college, $1,000 a month. Now you can't live on $10,000 a month. It's all monopoly, you know.
You know, he's a good guy. I hope he has a good, but make this video put on ESPN.